Corbin Burnes, Blake Snell, and Max Fried are the three top aces on the free agent market. Which one is the best fit for the New York Mets? We'll talk about it on today's show.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Now, if there is one thing the New York Mets need above all else this offseason, it's an ace. Yes, we spent a lot of time talking about Juan Soto. He's a franchise-altering talent. I think we all hope he ends up in a Mets uniform. But if we were just to rank the Mets' needs, getting an ace is pretty much atop the list. The Mets have Kodai Senga, but he's coming off an injury-plagued year. Sean Manaea was their ace this past season. Are they going to re-sign him? And even if they do, is that enough to put the Mets over the top? There's three pitchers in free agency that stand out above all the rest. And that's Blake Snell, Max Fried, and Corbin Burnes. So looking at those guys, if you've paid attention to this show throughout the offseason, if you've been tuning in, you've probably heard me hint this a couple times. Blake Snell, to me, is my favorite among those three for one primary reason. That's the fact that he does not have a qualifying offer attached to him. Sign Blake Snell. You're going to pay him a lot of money, but that's it. You're not giving up draft picks. You're not giving up international bonus pool money. But I will say, through diving into this exercise today of really looking at these free agents, I have warmed a little bit to both Fried and Burnes and being okay with giving up those comp picks because ultimately you just want to hit on the right pitcher because this is a pitcher that, regardless of which one you sign, is probably going to be under contract for, I would think, 5 years at least. Blake Snell's the one that you might get for a shorter term deal, higher AAV, and that's also attracted to me. But ultimately, you want to nab the right guy, and if you give up some more draft capital, but you got the right pitcher, it's all fine and well. So I really want to focus more on the pitchers today as opposed to just that side of it. But I will say again, Blake Snell does have that intriguing element to him that he doesn't have the qualifying offer attached. You never know, though. That might just drive up the bidding on Blake Snell's services. Last year, he hit the open market coming off a Cy Young season and could not get that long-term deal for whatever it's worth, whether that was because of the market with other teams and everyone was just fascinated by Yoshinobu Yamamoto and nobody was willing at the time to commit years to Snell, whether that was Scott Boras just completely misplaying his market. We'll never know why that went the way it did, but I think ultimately with Blake Snell, teams were having trouble buying into the Cy Young year, which was a 2.25 ERA and 32 starts, 180 innings pitched. He led the league in walks, but also led the league in strikeouts. He is a very interesting pitcher because he does operate on that miss bats model of throw nasty pitches, a lot of pitches out of the zone. You're trying to get chase, and that's going to limit damage for the most part if you're getting those swings, if you're getting that chase, but it also can get you into trouble where you're loading the bases with walks and all of a sudden one big swing can kill you. So that's, I think, the risk reward that teams were weighing and giving up all of the comp pick value on signing him when he had a qualifying offer attached last year, plus the contract, plus Scott Boras maybe asking too much coming off the Cy Young. Maybe that is what held back his market. Also, you look at the volatility year over year because this is a two-time Cy Young winner, guy that's won in both leagues, won his first Cy Young in 2018 as a Tampa Bay Ray when he pitched to a 1.89 ERA and struck out 221 and 180 and two-third innings pitched. But those two Cy Young seasons are the only time Blake Snell has ever even exceeded 130 innings pitched. 2019, he follows up the Cy Young with a 4.29 ERA, 107 innings. 2020, shortened year. He was great, but it was the COVID year, 3.24 ERA and 50 innings, 11 starts. 2021, 4.20 ERA in 27 starts, 128 and 2/3 innings pitched. 2022, ERA back down to 3.38, but 24 starts, 128 innings. And then you got the Cy Young season in 2023. Look at his career overall, 3.19 ERA for Blake Snell. And here's the interesting stat. 11.2 strikeout per nine rate is the best in MLB history. I'll say that again. 11.2 strikeout per nine rate. So how many strikeouts he averages over 9 innings? 11.2 is the highest mark in MLB history. That's how nasty this guy is. This past year, he had a mixed season again because he didn't get spring training. He had an adductor injury. He had a groin injury. He went on paternity leave. He only made 8 starts in the first half and pitched to a 6.31 ERA. But in the second half, he made 12 starts. He pitched to a 1.45 ERA, struck out 103 in 68 and a third innings pitched, threw a no-hitter, and had a whip of 0.89. That is walks and hits over innings pitched. If you have a whip under 1, that is elite. If you have a whip under 0.9, it's remarkable. He was, for those 12 starts, the best pitcher in baseball, again, after doing that all year in 2023. So when I look at Blake Snell, he's turning 32 next week. If he gets a 5-year deal, yes, there's some risk because this is a guy that relies on nasty stuff. If the stuff declines, it can get ugly for Blake Snell. But purely based on a domination factor, you can make the case that when this guy is on, he's the best pitcher in baseball. Because over the last 2 seasons, when he's gotten himself right, he's been pitching consistently to a sub 2, even at times a sub 1.5 ERA. He has been unbelievable. And this year, he even shook off that notion of not being able to go deep into games because he was doing that and he had his first ever complete game and it was a no-hitter. So the question now is, how much money does he get? Does the fact that he doesn't have the qualifying offer attached inflate what he's going to end up earning here? Are there a lot of teams going to be in on him over Fried and Burnes simply because they don't want to give up that compensation? How many years is he going to get? If you can get Blake Snell for less than 5 years, I almost don't care how much money it costs. I really don't, because you're mitigating the risk. 5-year deal where you're going to be paying for age 32, 33, 34, 35. See, that 4th year is age 35, 36, 30. Well, I guess it would just be age 35 and age 36. I'd be really concerned about the last 2 years of that deal. I'd be a little more worried, but I'd be okay with it. Gets to a 6-year deal, 7-year deal. If he ends up getting that many years, I'd probably stay away. I just don't think he's going to get that many years. I think he's going to ultimately land on a pretty high AAV 5-year deal, and I would be all in on Blake Snell. This guy is just absolutely disgusting. I trust that it's legit. I think he's going to keep on pitching like this for the next couple of years. If you get to a point where Blake Snell is right in October, that's a guy that I'm excited to hand the ball to because I think he can absolutely deliver in the biggest moments. But there's definitely still some risk there that you can't ignore. The fact that he hasn't ever put up back-to-back workhorse-like seasons, and even his Cy Young seasons. It's 180 innings. It's not 200 innings. As we get to Corbin Burnes in the final segment, that's more of the workhorse model that Mets fans might want. In the middle, though, we got Max Fried to talk about. I think he sort of splits the difference in some ways between Blake Snell and Corbin Burnes. I'm going to tell you why in just a minute. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. Love the holidays, but hate grocery shopping? Ibata is making your Thanksgiving easier with cash back on everything you need to make your perfect holiday meal so you can get the turkey and your favorite sides for free. This month, Ibata is giving new users 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast. Just add the offers in the app to redeem everything you need to make your Thanksgiving feast complete. All you have to do is shop at your favorite retailers and upload your receipt. Ibata gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can get everything you need for the holidays. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibata, you get real cash back that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. Download the Ibata app now and use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast starting November 1st. Just go to the App Store, Google Play Store, and download the free Ibata app. Use that code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Ibata, IBOTTA, in the Google Play or App Store, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB. Today's episode is also brought to you by GameTime. GameTime. It's the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. What I love about GameTime, it's so much easier to get tickets, particularly last-minute tickets. I usually don't find my tickets to the game until I'm walking into the ballpark or to the arena, and then I'm looking on the app. They have the GameTime Picks feature, which will filter out the fluff and only show you incredible deals on great seats. So you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. You see the best possible deals. You can also click the all-in price feature so you know exactly how much you're going to pay with all the fees included. You can view your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. You can buy tickets in a matter of seconds. Download the GameTime app, create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? It's game time. Stay up today with all the latest in the world of sports. When you check out Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. We're getting closer and closer to our next goal of 11,000 subscribers. So I appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. All right, let's talk about Max Fried a little bit here because I think he is the overlooked ace in this market. Max Fried is coming off another great season where he pitched to a 3.25 ERA in 29 starts and 174 and a third innings pitched. Got overshadowed because the Cy Young was on his team, but Max Fried was brilliant. He did miss time in 2023 due to an injury, making only 14 starts. Still pitched to a 2.55 ERA that year. But other than that, if you go back to 2019, his first full season in the Braves rotation, he has pitched at least 165 innings each year. If you look at his stats since 2020, the ERA he had this year at 3.25 is the highest mark he has had. So he has really just been an outstanding ace year over year on a team that has had other good pitchers that have overshadowed him, whether it's Sale this past year, Spencer Strider. There's been other arms that sort of get that acclaim before Max Fried, but Max Fried is as consistent as they come. Career ERA of 3.07. He'll be 31 years old next year. Look at what he's done against the Mets. They should maybe just sign him so he never pitches against them again. 2.48 career ERA against the Mets in 109 innings. He has killed them. Now, comparing Fried to Blake Snell it's two completely different animals because you're talking about stuff versus pitchability, really. They couldn't be more different in a lot of ways. We actually did a dive on this at Just Baseball. It's titled Who's Better, Max Fried versus Blake Snell. And I think the stat that jumped out to me most reading this thing back as I was preparing for the show today was where our writer Zach Warden pointed out Fried's Stuff Plus. So Stuff Plus tracks each individual pitch. 100 is average. Okay, so it'll tell you which pitches are elite, which pitches are average, which are below average. And it's very interesting when you look at the entire arsenal for Max Fried. This is straight from our article at Just Baseball. I said Fried's Stuff Plus tracking dates back to 2020, and not once since then has Fried's arsenal graded out at above league average. So now you're thinking, wait a minute. So he doesn't have great stuff? A little bit further on this. His slider and curveball have always been great pitches according to the model, but his other four offerings have never received a number above 100. This doesn't mean they aren't effective pitches, but it does signal that it's not raw stuff that's carried him through 884 and a third MLB innings with a 3.07 ERA. So what we're saying is you look at Stuff Plus, look at, what he throws outside of his put away pitches, his slider, his curveball. He doesn't have an elite fastball that he's relying on the way Blake Snell does. For Max Fried, it's about control. It's about pitchability. And the thing that makes that intriguing, while you might say, man, give me the stuff, give me the nastiness, give me the guy that for his career has struck out more batters per nine than anyone in MLB history. I want that type of dominance. Max Fried might be a safer bet because he doesn't rely on the strikeouts. He's got a decent strikeout rate, right? He'll probably be somewhere in a given season between 9 strikeouts per 9. Like, he's still probably going to strike out a batter per inning or a little bit less than that. If he throws 175 innings, he's probably going to strike out 170. It's going to be a good enough rate, but he also doesn't walk a lot of guys. So you're looking at a pitcher that I think the floor is much higher than Blake Snell. Snell's got the highest ceiling of any pitcher in baseball in a lot of respects. Max Fried has a very high floor. And I think if Blake Snell's stuff tails off, the floor can drop out from under him, right? Because all of a sudden, he's trying to avoid bats. He doesn't have that great stuff. He's not getting the chase. Now he's walking the world. Now the big innings keep coming. Now all of a sudden, Blake Snell, who at one point is the best pitcher in baseball when he's on, doesn't have that gear anymore. And the ERA balloons into the high 4s, and he's not giving a lot of innings. And all of a sudden, it's a horrible contract. Max Fried, on the other hand, you feel pretty good about the fact that even if the stuff does tail off some, with pitchability, he should be able to continue to control the strike zone, get out, keep hitters off balance, evolve, and potentially be a pitcher that even if the stuff isn't always there, he's still at least a durable, consistent starting pitcher that's middle of rotation, if anything. And he doesn't fall off to the point where you're just like, man, this contract is killing us. So that's the risk and reward. I think ultimately when you look at the years that Fried might get, I think there's a chance that Max Fried might be able to push for a 6th year or a 7th year, where Blake Snell, the route to, winning free agency for Snell might just be short-term high AAV. So with Max Fried, maybe it's 7 years, and I'm just throwing numbers out there. Actually, you know what? I did a lot of thought on this. Let me actually, instead of just talking out of school, let me look at what I spent my time poring over for just baseball in our top free agent predictions article that I wrote. See exactly what I had. I think it was 6 for 190, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. I had him going to the Dodgers. I know that much. 7 for 190 is where I landed on Blake Snell. Or excuse me, on Max Fried. So you look at what that comes out to, it's $27 million per. That's a pretty nice contract. Now, with Snell, I had him getting 5 years, and it was 155. So let's break that down. That is 31 a season. So I do think that when it comes to AAV, Blake Snell is going to make more than Max Fried, but I think Fried is going to get those extra couple years, and you just have to weigh the risk reward on that. I'd also say there's a world where maybe Snell ends up signing a 3 or 4 year deal, and he's looking at a high AAV contract. Maybe he decides, you know what, I'd rather get $115 million over 3 years and hit free agency again. And he's making over $38 million per, but you're not tied to him long term, and that's really attractive. I don't think you can go wrong with either of these guys. I really don't. Really, any of them. We're going to talk about Burnes in the final segment. But I do think when we're discussing the two left-handers in particular, with Snell, I think you're betting on ceiling. With Fried, you're banking on floor. And you just have to decide what's more important to you and ultimately see where the market goes in these guys. I could see a world where maybe Max Fried, a little more underrated in the market. Maybe he ends up falling at a steal of a price. So we'll see how it all shakes out. There's also, again, the comp pick element to signing Max Fried. I think for me, if the Mets end up signing Juan Soto and you're already going to be in that bucket of giving up the draft picks and the bonus pool money, just lean into it at that point. It doesn't really matter as much. If you end up missing out on Juan Soto, I still think you might have to bite the bullet for an ace. And that's where we lead. That's what leads us into Corbin Burnes. He's the top pitcher on the market. Should the Mets just not mess around and sign him? I'm going to break that down in the final segment. First, though, another quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So you get a hunch in the middle of the game. You can check out the latest stats, the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And again, you want to make sure that you're going to hit that first $5 bet. Maybe you're just taking the over on Saquon Barkley rushing yards. This is a sad Giants fan talking. Again, you're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So you take something like Barkley's over on rushing yards, you know it's going to hit, or maybe it's the money line on the Eagles or whatever else it's. Maybe it's the money line against the Giants, the money line for the Giants to lose. And if you win that first bet, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets when you win. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're an everyday listener of the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks in the Mets. You can ask me questions at any time. You can also take part in our Locked On Mets signed photo giveaways. If you're going to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. All right, so Corbin Burnes is the best pitcher on the market. There's no doubt about that. Why is he the best pitcher on the market? Look at his last 3 seasons. He has pitched to a 3.08 ERA over the last 3 years, and that is across 590 innings. Only 2 pitchers have thrown more innings than Corbin Burnes. That's Logan Webb. That's Aaron Nola. Logan Webb has the most innings pitched at a 3.22 ERA. He's definitely the most underrated pitcher in baseball. Aaron Nola, 3.75 ERA with the second most innings. But you look at that ERA of 3.08, and each year he's giving you 190 plus innings. It was 202 innings in 2022, 193 and 2/3 innings in 2023, and this past year 194 and 1/3 innings, all with ERAs below 3.5. 3 of the last 4 years he's had a sub 3 ERA. This past year 2.92 and the 194 and 1/3. The year prior, 2023, was the 3.39, but then you had 2.94. And then, of course, 2021, his first full season in the rotation. I guess you can look at 2020 as well, but that was the COVID year. So 2021, first full 162 in a rotation. He made 28 starts. He pitched to an MLB best 2.43 ERA. He won the Cy Young. All of his rate stats were elite. When you talk about expected ERA, 2.0, FIP, fielding independent pitching, 1.63, xFIP, 2.30. F-WAR, which is wins above replacement, 7.5. They were all elite. Home run per 9 rate, 0.38. He just kept the ball in the yard. He struck out batters at a 36% rate. He was just unhittable. But I think the reason why you look at Corbin Burnes, and I isolated to the last 3 years, not including that Cy Young season, is because I think he's become a different pitcher. He has learned how to pitch to contact. So I've seen some out there that have painted Corbin Burnes as a pitcher on a decline. And the reason why they've done that is because they look at a couple things. They look at his cutter, which isn't breaking as much as it did in 2021, and it's been a steady decline. They look at his strikeout rate, right? They see the strikeout rate that was at 36% in his Cy Young season. It's down to 23.1%, which is about league average. He is not striking out batters at an elite rate anymore. And you get concerned about that. You say, man, maybe this stuff's tailing off. To me, the velocity is the first thing I look at. It's stayed the same. He has not lost any velocity. He's still throwing 95-mile-per-hour cutters, and it's still a nasty pitch that gets a lot of outs. And I think the difference is Corbin Burnes is not chasing swing and miss anymore. Yes, you get into a strikeout count, you want to get the punch out. Absolutely. And he still has multiple offerings, his curveball, slider, his changeup, that have a whiff rate this past year of 37% or better. He still has those elite offerings, particularly the slider. But he is pitching to contact to get deep in games. He saw his Cy Young season where he made 28 starts and was at 167 innings. And he wanted to make every single start and go as deep as he possibly could in games. And I think he has leaned into pitching to contact more, getting that first pitch strike. And if he does fall behind, not being afraid to throw that cutter in the zone, knowing that he has a great chance of still getting soft contact. The hard hit rate against him this past year of 31.6%, ranked in the 95th percentile among all pitchers. So he's not getting hit hard. Yes, the strikeouts aren't necessarily there, but if you want a workhorse, if you want a guy that you can pencil in for 190 plus innings in 2025, Corbin Burnes is the guy. Blake Snell, we know the innings pitched have always been a question mark for him. Max Fried has been a good workhorse, absolutely, but he hasn't quite gotten to that level of Corbin Burnes where he's flirting with 200 innings pitched each year. And I think if you're going to pay that premium, maybe you do spend it on Corbin Burnes. The question for me is, what is Corbin Burnes' market? How much money is he going to get? He just turned 30 years old, so he's actually younger than both Max Fried and Blake Snell. It's a year younger than Fried, 2 years younger than Snell. I look at Corbin Burnes, and if I was his agent, and that's also Scott Boras, I would be saying, here's Garrett Cole 2.0. Now, different pitchers, that they aren't identical, but when it comes to what I'm selling to teams, I am selling an ace that's going to be right there to give you 200 innings a year. That's what I'm telling you you're getting. If you sign Corbin Burnes over the next 5 years, he's going to get over 900 innings pitched. He's going to get close to 1,000. He is going to be that good. That's what you're selling teams. That year in, year out, it's 200 innings. Garrett Cole was a year younger. He was going into his age 29 season. He got 9 years, $324 million from the Yankees, $36 million per. Yoshinobu Yamamoto got $325 million to have the largest contract ever over a longer period of time, but still. Scott Boras, I'm sure, wants to set that next bar with Corbin Burnes. Why not? That's what this guy does. Scott Boras is an egotistical maniac, okay? He wants the top contract for pitchers, the top contract for hitters, the top contract in sports if he can have it. That is what he is out to get. So he might set that price tag at $326 million. Over a 9-year deal, that's pretty much the exact the exact Garrett Cole contract. So right around $36 million per, be, thousands of dollars more because it would have an extra $1 million split up over 9 years. But if you want to hit that number but not give him 9 years, if it's an 8-year deal, you're looking at $40.75 million. If the bidding gets that crazy, I'm out. The reason why I'd be on Corbin Burnes, because I don't think there's any team that is necessarily going to go to that level to get him. Where is the desperate team that is going to sign him the way that the Yankees were all over Garrett Cole, where the price tag was set $36 million per? They went to 9 years. They were as aggressive as you can be to get that ace. Is there a team in the market that's going to meet that? If there is, let them have Corbin Burnes. I am not looking at Corbin Burnes and saying, yeah, let's tie up 9 years to this guy when he's turning 30. I just wouldn't do it. With that said, my prediction on his contract in the article for Just Baseball was 8 years, $232 million. That's $29 million per year. If that contract ends up being more in the line of what we're talking about with Corbin Burnes, and by the way, if I have the stat right, I think that would have made him the 8th, if I'm not mistaken, pitcher to ever get a contract over $200 million. So that's not nothing, okay? To get that deal, that's still a very good contract for him to land on, and it's 8 years. But that AAV is at a point that I think it's worth it. There's other outlets that have him going as low as $175 to $200 million. So it's really hard to predict the market on Corbin Burnes. I don't know how aggressively teams are spending on starting pitching this year. And that long-term deal, is that still on the table? Are teams going to look at Garrett Cole, say this is another version of that where we trust that he's going to be healthy, he's going to be a workhorse, and they're going to sign up for it? Maybe. And you know what? You look at Garrett Cole's contract, the first 5 years of that deal have been outstanding. He's been amazing. But this year he got hurt. Now he got back on the mound. He still looked like one of, if not the best pitcher in baseball when it mattered most in the World Series. He was still great. Should have covered first, but he was still great. How are you looking at the next 4 years of that deal? The Yankees told you, because Scott Boras tried to play the game. There was that clause in the contract. Garrett Cole could opt out, and if he did, the Yankees could opt into a 10th year. They floated out that he was going to opt out. He either never did or they just ended up agreeing to the exact same terms of the original contract. I think they just never actually opted out. And so they bluffed. The Yankees called their bluff because they weren't really willing to sign up for a 5th year at $36 million per. They basically said, go out in the market and get that money. Go out in the market right now and get 5 years and $180 million. And Scott Boras ultimately caved on that. So looking at Corbin Burnes, is the 8-year contract on the table, or is it a 7-year deal or a 6-year deal? The reason why I predicted 8 for 232, and I did not have him sign with the Mets. Actually, I'm signing with the Red Sox. But the reason why I went that route with my prediction is because I think ultimately they're going to want to get him over $200 million. So I think it's going to take an 8th year to do that. Granted, he could have a 7-year deal at $29 million per, or even let's just say for round numbers, $30 million per and get to 7-10. I think that's realistic. But I ultimately think that they're going to want to get that 8th year. And if you're the Mets and that AAV is going to trickle down to $29 million and you're getting the best pitcher on the market, I still think that actually be worth it. I would not be mad at that contract whatsoever. But looking at the 3, I think weighing these aces out, you have Blake Snell, highest ceiling possibly, a lot of risk. Real question about how many years you should commit to him, but maybe he's the guy you can get in the shortest term deal, highest AAV. Max Fried meets somewhere in the middle. Maybe you can get him on a 6-year deal at a reasonable AAV, relatively, of course. $30 million is reasonable for a frontline pitcher, but still a lot of money. Maybe it's somewhere around there. And then you get to Corbin Burnes, who I think is going to get the longest deal. So there's that risk added to it, but it's the best possible pitcher. I don't think the Mets can make a mistake on any of these guys. I think all of them would be great signings that you're going to be excited about. The more I thought about it, as much as Blake Snell's upside intrigues me, going into next year, who do I feel the best about? I feel the best about the best possible pitcher, and Corbin Burnes is still the best possible pitcher. But let me know in the comment section if you're watching on YouTube, which are the 3 pitchers you'd like them to sign. I'm also going to put a poll up on YouTube today as well, so you can vote on it, and we'll see how those markets develop. Probably after the Juan Soto domino falls, but you never know if one of these guys might just surprise us and sign early. So it's going to be an exciting winter. You don't usually get 3 pitchers of this caliber on the market at the same time, and that should create a lot of fun discourse over the coming weeks here. Anyway, that's going to be all for today's show. I appreciate all of you for tuning in. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on X, Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listener, your first watch every single day. Now for your second watch, head over to YouTube and check out the first ever 24/7 streaming channel. Covers everything in the world of sports. Talking about Locked On Sports Today with our local host from each team, league-wide host from each league. Find Locked On Sports Today streaming 24/7 on YouTube.